Good morning. My name is Cliff Montgomery, and I'm chairing the Finance and Communications Committee for our building campaign. Before I introduce our speakers and our agenda this morning, I just have one housekeeping item, and Steve took care of the other part for me. If you have children down the hall, and probably some of you do, just take a deep breath, sit back, and enjoy the show, because the staff and volunteers down the hall are aware that we're going to run a little overtime today. Okay? We really are glad you're here. If you're visitors, please feel invited to stick around. But if you have been here for any length of time, you're at least vaguely aware of the fact that there's been a building committee meeting over the course of the last several months, going through the process of trying to decide the best way to handle our growing ministries by matching it with growing our space. So the presentation this morning is really going to fall into four main areas. First, Dave Stott's going to come and speak to us. Dave's the chairman of our elder board. He's also the chairman of the committee that's overseeing the building and the design part of this project. And he'll briefly explain the design concept that you should all have received at least a little bit of information about in the letter a couple weeks ago, if you're in our database. Secondly, following Dave's comments, Jeff Nauer, the consultant that we've hired from Kirby Smith Associates, will talk to us about this important step we're about to launch into here as we look for God's will for this church. Now, Jeff's going to tell you a little bit more about his work and his experience, but I'll just say at the outset, our committee, over the probably 3 months or so that we've been working with Jeff, does that sound about right? Since July, we've benefited in ways that I just couldn't even begin to describe. And by implication, that means you all have as well. So Jeff's going to come up and talk to us a little bit. He's been sharing with us his experience, his cool and calm-headed wisdom. He's been a real joy to work with. We will have some time for question and answer, okay? And then we'll have some final instructions and prayer. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Dave Stott to talk to us a little bit about the design concept you've seen.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Beautiful day it is, and we've had quite a few. Thank you for that. Last November, at our congregational meeting, we revealed some very preliminary concepts for a building project to meet some pressing ministry needs. We showed one early idea for expansion and shared our very early thoughts about budget and cost. After that meeting, we seated 2 committees and began to dig deep into the design and financing aspects of this kind of a project. Here are a few of the goals that were set for our committees. To meet the growing ministry needs of CFC in a way to minimize disruption to our current activities. To anticipate the future space and facility needs of the next generation. To build in such a way that we don't find ourselves undoing and redoing after each phase. That is, build smart and efficiently. Although youth and worship ministries exhibit pressing needs, other ministries that provide supportive roles, such as infant and child care, Sunday school, adult education, vine and branches, and administration, are all busting at the seams and require space. The committees are leveraging the skills of our members and also, when necessary, consulting with experts in church building and design, budgeting, financing, feasibility. We have done that through hundreds of man-hours and scores of meetings to arrive at what we think is a good basic concept for both building design and construction flow process. In short, after seeing God's confirmation over the past 5 years of our 10-year vision, we took steps to honor that confirmation by stepping forward in faith as God enables us to build His kingdom here on earth. I want to emphasize that everything we are showing you today constitutes our best ideas to date. They are all subject to modification, improvement, and other considerations that we won't address until we have completed the feasibility study, and we are further down the road towards completing the plans. The basic footprint that we sent you a week ago or so gives you an idea of the location of what would be our new worship space at the east end of the church. This is the side toward Brick Lane. We anticipate a worship space large enough for all of us to meet at one time, with the opportunity to add balcony space in the future when necessity demands and budget permits. Since that ground slopes eastward, we have the opportunity, actually the need, to support the new worship area with a lower level. So the lower level won't feel like a basement. We anticipate digging down a bit so we can have 10 to 12 foot ceilings and an area that would provide very flexible education, fellowship, and multi-use space. Although we haven't designed it yet, we have at this point allocated space for a commercial kitchen and would plan to rough in plumbing and electrical during our initial building phase. An elevator would provide for wheelchair accessibility to all levels and for transferring movable equipment from one floor to another. Here are some of the advantages of building this space where we are showing it and with the amenities that we will put into it. We can worship together on Sundays and have room for everyone at special services like Christmas Eve and Thanksgiving Eve. We have the ability to add additional balcony space in the future, making it possible to increase seating incrementally. This design gives us some flexibility of phasing the project efficiently. Building this way means not having to tear out and rebuild as we grow. The space we have preliminarily designed serves many ministry needs, not just youth and worship, as some of our earlier concepts did. We would expect this approach to create minimal disruption to ongoing ministry during the construction of the building. In the full scope of implementing and pursuing our vision, this approach is the most cost-effective, even though it would require that we spend more in the beginning. Speaking of cost, we are estimating the total cost of this initial project at $4 to $4.5 million. I know that is a big number. I know that if you are not familiar with building institutional type buildings, that can sound way out of whack. It's not. It is actually lower than one might expect. We are conducting this feasibility study to help us know how to phase this, how to finance it, and how to prioritize our options. Here is one way to put this number in context. With our current attendance of approximately 500 adults, if each adult found a way to contribute $20 per week, that would be $1,000 per year per adult. With 500 adults, that would amount to $500,000 towards the building per year. With that simple approach, that means that we would pay this project off in less than 10 years. I'm not asking you to do that yet. I am just trying to give you an easy way to understand why we don't think this number is unreasonable for what we're proposing. Whether or not this cost is reasonable relative to what we as a congregation are able and willing to support financially is one purpose for the feasibility study. And that is why I am urging you to participate in the study. Cliff will have some instructions for you in a minute and will tell you several ways that you can help us gather the information we need so that we know how to proceed. One last note about this plan, and that is, while the exact layout and space allocation is still being thought through, this existing sanctuary and adjoining areas would support our junior and senior high youth needs. Actually, this would provide about twice the amount of space that these ministries than we had initially projected, allowing for growth and not simply providing a bare minimum to meet current needs. Now let me tell you just a few things about the exterior. We would have 2 grade level entries for the addition. On the north side, there would be an entrance where the driveway is now, and another on the south side, which would also be a covered entrance. We would be able to preserve an area that has been useful to us in many ways, the west lawn, where we have the outdoor meals, baptisms, and communion services that are part of what makes us as a body unique. As you you look at this slide behind me, I want you to remember that this is only to give you an idea of what the building might look like. We certainly haven't finalized all the details, like window shapes and sizes, exterior surfaces, but you can get an idea of shape, size, and position relative to the current building. At this time, the portion of the addition that joins to the current educational wing would have a flat roof that can be used to place heating, ventilation, and air conditioning equipment out of sight. We would, of course, lose some parking area where the addition is planned, but we would add more parking closer to the brick lane. We would also have traffic loops that would funnel cars between drop-off points at the doors and the parking areas. And we have positioned the addition so that most of the parking would be in close proximity to the main core of the church building. Finally, I want to mention that none of this planning has been done simply to make us bigger. We see God blessing the work here in Elverson, and we want to be used in the best way to further the ministries He has called us to. We know that we can't do that well in our current facility. We know that we need more space, even to handle current ministry well, much less with growth. We need your support. I'm talking about your understanding of what God has called us to and what your role is in that effort. The building we are considering is just a tool. It is not what we are here to do, but it is an important part of making it possible for us to do what we are here on earth to do in Elverson. And that is to serve, minister, teach, and fellowship together, to preach biblical truth, build strong relationships, and practice practical help. Remember that these plans are far from complete, that we need your participation in this study to help us move ahead, with the understanding that many of our answers are going to be, we don't know yet, we have not gone that far in the process. I and my colleagues will be happy to answer any questions you have. Now I will turn the podium over to Jeff Nauer from Kirby Smith Associates, who will tell you a bit about his company, himself, and how this study will work. Thank you.
Thank you, Dave. Good afternoon, everyone. It is a pleasure to be with you. I am Jeff Nauer, Executive Vice President with Kirby Smith Associates, and it is really a pleasure to be with you today and to be part of what God is doing in your church. I'm going to cover 5 points briefly this morning, and after that I'll be happy as well to answer any questions that you might have concerning the feasibility study. First of all, who is Kirby Smith Associates? Secondly, how will we serve your church? Thirdly, how will the feasibility study be conducted? Fourthly, what happens after the feasibility study? And number 5, why put forth all this effort? First, who is Kirby Smith Associates? We are a team of dedicated believers who specialize in the ministry of Christian stewardship and church growth. We assist churches and Christian schools in analyzing their specific needs, setting goals, conducting feasibility studies, capital funds and stewardship campaigns, as well as church growth workshops. Since 1938, we have served more than 15,000 churches across the United States and a few in Canada. Our home office is located in Lancaster County, near Quarryville, actually in the little village of The Buck. If you've ever wondered where The Buck stops, it actually stops at the Kirby Smith office. I'm in my 12th year with Kirby Smith Associates, following more than 22 years of pastoral ministry. With Kirby Smith, I've had the privilege of leading more than 150 church projects. As a pastor, I was privileged to guide 3 congregations in Chambersburg and Lancaster, Pennsylvania, and then in Shrewsbury, New Jersey. And God was so very gracious to allow us to see well over 1,000 people come to know Christ. What a privilege that was. But God has changed our direction, and now allow me to work with churches to help them realize their goals, their visions, and their dreams. Number two, how will we serve your church? Your church leaders selected Kirby Smith to discuss your project vision. We determined the best way to proceed at this time is to first conduct a feasibility study to gather your input and your views. The study process is enabling you to learn more about leadership's vision, while now giving you the opportunity to comment. Input received on the feasibility study will enable your leaders to measure your understanding of and support for the proposal. This information will better equip leaders as they try to determine what are the next steps to take. They will have at their disposal the opinions of many people, in addition to leadership's. Kirby Smith will assist in conducting the actual study, including the gathering of information and preparing the report. Number three, how will the feasibility study be conducted? In the next few days, all households of CEFC will receive a questionnaire concerning the proposal you just saw, along with instructions on how to participate. In fact, you will be able to pick up your packet today before you leave. The questionnaire has several questions to establish the demographics of the study to make sure that we have heard from all corners and aspects of your congregation, and the balance of questions having to do with your opinions on the proposal. You will also be asked about potential financial giving. Should a project go forward and a capital campaign be approved? No firm financial commitments will be received at this time, and there will be no pressure made upon you. I'm simply here to listen and learn. We will be measuring potential support so leaders can make the wisest decisions about if or when to proceed. You will also be given the opportunity to submit questions, comments, concerns that you would like leaders to address. Input given will be confidential, so you may feel free to share all of your thoughts. I am the only one who will be reading all of the questionnaires. There will be two ways from which to choose in order to participate in the study. The first is to schedule a personal interview to discuss your responses to the questionnaire. The reason for the interviews is that this is the format in which I gather the most complete information from study participants. So we encourage as many people as possible to schedule an interview when that time comes. The details that I'm going to share with you for the next moment or two are in your instruction sheet, so you don't need to write them down. I will be here on the following days: Sunday, October the 6th from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. Tuesday the 8th from 10 a.m. to 9 p.m. Thursday the 10th, 10 a.m. to 9. Monday the 14th, 10 a.m. to 9. And Saturday, October the 19th from 9 a.m. to 3 p.m. Simply fill out your questionnaire, bring it along, bring your thoughts with you to the interview. Interviews will last about 25 minutes, and I can promise that because appointments will be scheduled at 30-minute intervals. Couples may attend together or separately as your schedules may allow. I will be recording the response for every single person, in the rare occasion that a husband and wife may not totally agree. You will be able to sign up for an appointment after today's meeting, or by following the contact information you can call or email the church. The instructions again are in that sheet. Follow-up calls will be made by church staff and leaders to fill time slots. We want to hear from as many people as possible. If you're not able to schedule an interview, or you simply don't prefer that method of participation, you may fill out the questionnaire in writing and return it to the church by October 20th. Input from the interviews and questionnaires will then be tabulated, reviewed, and analyzed. Conclusions will be reached and recommendations made within a written report. I will present that report first to church leaders on November the 6th, with a subsequent report to you, the congregation, on Sunday, November the 10th. The entire report will be made available online or in written form. Number 4, what happens after the feasibility study? Church leaders will review the results and determine how they might proceed. The study process presents several possible outcomes. The congregation may simply support the project as proposed, both morally and financially, and a timeline will then be established. The project may need to be adjusted or phased. A financial plan may need to be adjusted or phased, or forward progress may fail to receive support. That's why your input is so vital to this process. That's why we strongly encourage you to take part. Of all the studies that I have personally conducted, all but one have had participation from no less than 50% of all of the engaged households of the church. That level of cooperation allows leaders and you, the congregation, to gain a very accurate picture of how everyone believes that God is leading and guiding your church. If forward progress is indicated, then necessary approvals or votes will be sought. A capital funds campaign will then be engaged, and at that time, firm financial commitments to the project will be received. Then, the scope of the project, how much of it may be done, when any work may be scheduled, will be established, and a timetable of progress communicated to you. Finally, why put forth all this effort? We believe that conducting a feasibility study follows the path of good stewardship that was taught by Jesus himself. In Luke chapter 14, verses 28 to 30, Jesus said, "Suppose one of you wants to build a tower. Will he not first sit down and estimate the cost to see if he has enough money to complete it? For if he lays the foundation and is not able to finish it, everyone who sees it will ridicule him, saying, 'This fellow began to build and was not able to finish.'" Conducting a feasibility study gives people an opportunity to learn what leaders envision, along with a chance to offer their own input. Moral and financial support can be measured before final decisions are made. Leaders can weigh the support they have to work with and plan accordingly. That is what counting the cost is really all about, and that's good stewardship. I hope to meet as many of you as possible during this process, and I thank you very much for allowing me to be part of your exciting future. God bless you.
Thanks, Jeff. What do you think? That was rhetorical. The feasibility studies will really ask you what you think. We're excited. I hope you are. This is a lot to process and a lot to chew on, and that's okay. It takes time to process all this information, so we're counting on you to do that prayerfully. One thing that I want to mention here that Jeff didn't mention is that we found out early on in working with Kirby Smith that maybe, I don't know how many years ago, maybe some of the committee remember this, it was 20 or 30 years ago that Kirby Smith helped with a capital campaign for the building you're sitting in right now. So these guys have been around a long time, and their relationship with this church is a long one. The way I'd like to handle these last few minutes that we have here is first, just to give you some final instructions. I realize some of you may need to get out of here, so I want to, before anybody does, I want to give you instructions for how to get your packet, how to sign up for interviews, and so on. Then we'll do Q&A, if there are any questions, and if any of you feel awkward about asking questions publicly, we'll hang around. And then finally, I'll close with prayer, okay? So, how can you participate? I'm not sure if it's up, I think it is. Prayer. I put it up there twice, it's so important. That's really not a negotiable thing. We need you to be praying us through this process. If we miss that, we're missing the point. This is God's ministry. This is not ours. This is God's building. This is not ours. And we want to be walking right in lockstep with Him. Not a step behind, not a step ahead. So please, please pray. And Jeff said it, Dave said it, I'll say it again. Participate in this study. That's one of the most helpful things you can do. I really can't stress the importance enough. I would say for each incremental participant we get in this, the results of this study are going to be that much more helpful. It really is important. I'll re-stress here that both the interviews and the questionnaires will be confidential. Jeff will be the only one to see them, and then he'll present his findings, his recommendations, his results to the elder board in summary format based on the feedback he gets. Now, who should participate? Everyone. Okay, and that's any adult member, regular attender here, participate. Whether you've considered this church your home for 3 weeks or for 3 decades, participate. Whether you walk through that door back there 1 time per week or 10 times per week, participate. And somebody says to me, you think people really walk through that door 10 times? Matt Carter, how many times a week do you walk through that door? Staff, okay? And I know some of you lay people as well walk through that door a lot. Please participate. Members, regular attenders, we need it all. Now, how do you get your questionnaire? At the end of the service, maybe you saw tables as you shuffled in past the first services as they were leaving. There are tables on the left-hand side of the foyer with alphabetized envelopes set up for any member or regular attender who's on our mailing list already. So grab that on your way out. And if you're a regular attender who's new enough not to have found your way into our database yet, don't worry. We have extra packets set up for you. Ask and you'll be given one. If we run out, ask someone back there. We'll put your name on a list and we'll get something to you as soon as possible. Okay. If you're listening to the audio here, you can tune out if you're in the room. If you're listening to the audio, this is all going to be sent to you tomorrow morning. Okay. Now, to sign up for an interview, right out here, there's a table with clipboards set up. Jeff listed the dates that he'll be here. There are about 100 slots, a little more than 100 slots of half-hour increment interviews. We want to fill them, okay? So we're asking you, if you don't sign up on your way out, we'd ask a lot of you to do that. But if you don't do it, please contact the church office or call Deb Shirey, who I think will be handling the sign-ups. It's very important. Now, some of you heard Dave Stott refer to our 10-year ministry vision, and I do realize that there are probably a lot of folks here who haven't been around for a while. I'd urge you to acquaint yourself with the vision, the 10-year vision that was laid out 5 years ago. To make that simple, there are copies in the back. Grab one on your way out, and if we run out, put your name on a list and we'll get a copy to you. I really can't urge your participation in these 3 ways strongly enough. I really can't. If you've been drawn closer to Christ through CDFC's ministry of biblical truth, strong relationships, and practical help, there's really no more practical, immediate, tangible way for you to help expand the scope of God's kingdom through the ministry here than by participating in this study. Okay. I think at this point what we can do is open it up for any questions and answers that we want to handle.